My name is Jeremy Coleman. I'm control room supervisor for Northwest Natural. I've been with Northwest Natural in operations for about 23 years. Real quickly go over who Northwest Natural is. A few of our strengths, definitely a lot of challenges. I'm going to touch on control room management. It's federal code that we have to live by now. I don't want to bore you with it, but it does rule our world. Considerations, initial approaches, and so on. One quick thing before we go, I'm going to be using the word controller a lot. I have gas controllers, that's what I have. Non-bargaining management, SCADA is their primary tool. We also have operators that work out in the plant. SCADA is a tool that they use along with a lot of other tools. So you'll be hearing me use controllers a lot. Northwest Natural, we are way up here in Oregon. If I can get the laser to go, here we go, right up here where that green is at. We're a local distribution company. We're a natural gas utility. Portland, Oregon is our home base. A little over 700,000 customers, a little over 15,000 miles of main. That includes distribution and transmission. We have 3 storage plants. We have a very large underground storage plant on system, as well as 2 LNG peak shaving plants. Fun fact, we are the second oldest company in Oregon. I believe the oldest is a funeral home. And we are, Coleman Funeral Home. I put a service into them years ago. And we are 5 weeks older than the state of Oregon, actually, 157 years old. I think we have far more strengths than just 3, but these are just the 3 I was going to talk about real fast. We have a really well-built infrastructure. For those in the game, I think you'll recognize we've replaced all of our low-pressure system. We don't have any low pressure left. We removed all of the cast iron in our system. There's none left. And as of the end of 2015, we have replaced all known bare steel. So we have a really a newer system that we're working with. We have very long tenured employees. I'm one of them. We're an old utility company. We have old utility people working there. That's a great thing. The no serious incidents, we haven't had any catastrophic failures that would make us change our business model. There's other companies on the West Coast that can't say the same thing. I'm not trying to throw darts, but what I'm leading into is with long tenured employees, many of whom are senior management, with a well-built infrastructure, with no serious incidents, that can lead to a complacency at times. It's hard to change the way we're doing things. It's gotten us this far, it's served us well, why would we change these things? So that's something that I'm kind of bumping up against. Some of our challenges, once again, I'm only highlighting a few here. I think we have more than this. We're not a process control. We are a distribution system. When we have a failure on the system, we're not shutting things down. We're trying to minimize customer outages as much as possible. We have an increasingly dynamic system. So I mentioned that we have an underground storage plant. We also have a single transmission supplier. So those two taken together means that we've done a lot of things on our system to be able to move gas around. And we grow with our customers. So it's not like we sat back and did this greenfield project on what this whole system's going to look like. We're adding pieces as we go, as the customers come on. That's making it more. We are adding more and more remotely controlled sites. I think we're a little over 40 remotely controlled sites from our control room now, with a lot more heading our way. We have a very old telecommunications infrastructure. We've got old equipment out in the field, very hilly terrain. It is always wet. I mean, it takes a toll on that. Physical design, I wasn't going to spend much time on this. Really, I think that's what we talked about before. I'm still trying to get people over the fact that a small office is not sufficient for a control room. It actually takes a lot more. The data, it keeps coming in, more and more and more of it. It keeps getting shoved into wherever we're keeping it. We have poor reporting capabilities. We have an ever-increasing demand from our growing internal customer base. They're getting much more sophisticated and the types of information that they want from the control room. Engineering group, code compliance, integrated resource planning group, they're getting really, really good, and they've outpaced us in our ability to give them the information that they're asking for. Sharing the vision, I can see that we need to change. the direction that we're going. Kind of what I talked about last slide is I've been struggling with how to share that with others in my group to get them to understand that this is something that we have to do. And then finally, we're going to talk about control room management regulations in the next slide. And like I said, I'm going to try to blast through that so I don't hurt you guys too much. So Title 49, Transportation, Code of Federal Regulations, 192-631. Relatively new, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old now. These are the rules that I have to play by. What's unfortunate is that it's called control room management. I think a lot of people have said that that's a control room problem. This is actually a company problem that we have to handle. There's so much tied together here. Roles and responsibilities, obviously we have to define those. Okay, no big deal. The second bullet, provide adequate information. 3 little words. Very important though. I want to read just a quick section. Each operator must provide its controllers with the information, tools, processes, and procedures necessary for the controllers to carry out the roles and responsibilities that the operator has defined. Yeah, I have to do that. How are we gonna do that? It references API RP 1165. Point-to-points are in there. This section alone is huge. Fatigue mitigation, I'm going to touch on that here in a couple slides just real fast. Alarm management is huge. They use words like identifying, reviewing, reporting, monitoring, addressing deficiencies. All of that has to come out of the SCADA system. Change management. How do I build change management into existing processes that have been around forever? How do I build that into the new ones? Operating experience. How do I review incidents and lessons learned when most of that information is captured in a SCADA system? And then not to shortchange training and compliance, but I don't have that much time to go over those. This slide, trying to educate folks about controllers. Why are we the way we are? We work 12-hour rotating shifts. Passing information from shift to shift is difficult at best. It's often impossible. Controllers work 3 to 4 12-hour shifts, and then they're off for 3 to 5 days. Fatigue management. We have to do that. It's the right thing to do. While they're on duty, they're working in the moment. They've got an eye on tomorrow, but they're not worried about next week. They're working today. I like to say that the guy that's working today is probably not working next Tuesday, and I'm right most of the time. So when a pipeline engineer comes in with a procedure that they want to talk about next week, the controllers care about that. But they're not worried about next week for 2 reasons. 1, they're probably not working, and 2, they know that whatever the plan is today, it's going to change a half a dozen more times before next week. That's just the nature of operations. Secondly, SCADA limitations. Trying to change the operating paradigm is not really going to work with an old SCADA system. I've learned that the hard way, and I continue to learn that every day. Let's tie those 2 together. This is something I'd like to try to leave you with, if there's just one thing. Understand that for our controllers, the main tool that they have is the SCADA system. The main environment that they're working in is the SCADA system, and yet roughly 2/3 of the information that's going in and out of that room, it's not in the SCADA system. It's not there. Logbook, shift change docs, load forecasting, phone, radio, email, walk-ins, crew call-outs, engineering procedures, information requests, scheduling, timekeeping. That's 12 things. I think it took me 7 seconds to just write those things down. They're not anywhere near the SCADA system, and yet the controllers, that's key to how well they can do their job. So presenting information, or integration, I guess. How are we going to start integrating more of these things into the same environment that they work in, or at least limiting the amount of environments that they're having to work in? Presenting information, is there a better way? I think there's lots of better ways. We're going to kind of touch on high-performance HMI just a little bit, and then finally compliance. Once again, control room management. Frankly, I should end every slide I have with compliance because that's my world. That's where I'm at. So initial approaches. One of the first things that we did was alarm rationalization, and in following standard practice, we did a really great job of the first round rationalizing a bunch of our alarms, and then we locked that information up because it was so valuable we didn't want anybody to screw it up, right? So I fought some battles. So originally, what you see here, this is our alarm summary screen. So this part here, that's all we had. It took up the whole screen. And so I fought and fought and fought to get some more information on here. One of the first things that we did was through the rationalization process, we realized that having a new category called alerts actually works for us. I know that there's some arguments between alerts, or between alarm people, whether alerts are valuable or not. For us, they actually are. And I'll use pipeline pressures, for instance. The way the system is you know, you have your lows, low lows, high highs. In the summertime, when demand is low, you're going to have some higher pressures. You're going to see them bumping up into the highs. In the past, we had them alarmed. Well, we know that. Let's not alarm those. Conversely, in the wintertime, you're going to have low pressures. We know that. So what we're doing is we're using the high and the low as an alert, and it's almost an extended normal operating range for the time of year. Controllers still get the information down here. It's not actionable. All they have to do is acknowledge it so that it clears, but alarms are actionable, alerts are not. We know that. The second thing we did is, am I not working here? In the lower right down here, it's kind of hard to see, but this is our knowledge base. We went through all this work rationalizing the alarms. Let's put it out there for the controllers. It's kind of hard to see, but when you select either an alarm or an alert, you're going to get your 4 C's: cause, consequence, confirmation, corrective action. We did the work. Let's put it out there to help the controllers. And then, of course, trend lines. We love our trend lines, so we put our trend line box up there. It's kind of hard to see, but if you look, they took our existing trend object and smushed it and put it up there, so it doesn't look as pretty as it should. Another thing that we did was I learned about high performance HMI. Oh, thank you. Here's our level 1 screen. If you're familiar with the concepts, I hope this looks familiar to you. We've got our moving analog indicators. We've got radar plots. Oh, I'm having problems. You guys are just going to have to look at that and trust me. We use a lot of tables are good for us. Our friend, the trend line, is up there again. Hopefully, it's kind of hard to see, but you might be able to see that we've got looks like at least 4 or 5 alarms up there. This screen's actually in production in our SCADA system. This is the screen design that we had, so it looks just a little bit different, but it's in production. I will give a shout out to G for helping us get that in there. And the guys are liking it. It's up in the control room right now. Another screen that's up in the control room right now is this one. This is our example of what we shouldn't be doing. This is Portland. This is definitely the pipeline system, the high pressure system in Portland. It's got a bunch of pressure sprinkled on it and some flows. It's got the Oregon Ducks and the Oregon State Beavers mascots on it. This is, the only thing I can do with this is use my brain to think about how the system should be operating and then start kind of hunting and pecking my way through it to make sure that the pressures are where I think they should be are. I can click on a flow here and there and get a trend box to show up if that happens to be working. So we're getting away from this, and this would be Portland. This would actually be half of Portland. So the previous screen and our new HMIs is going to look like this. This would be our level 2 for Portland. Same look and feel as the level 1, reserved space for face plates. A lot more functionality into this, a lot more, which is why it's not in production yet. Old SCADA system, we're not ready for it. Next steps, we're in the middle of a SCADA upgrade. I think they're finally realizing we're behind a few versions. We've got to step our game up to be able to start making some changes. I have identified, I hate to call it logging shift change software because it does a whole lot more than that. I have identified one that I'm looking to purchase now that's going to help us corral that other 2/3 of information that's not in the SCADA system. And then really taking a programmatic approach. We are a utility company. Money is not falling from the sky. There's a lot that needs to be done. So if I can set this up and start chipping things off on an annual basis, I think that's really the best way for us to go. Once again, back to sharing the vision. I need to get better and continue to refine my vision and get it out to people, get it out to senior management. So once again, this is just the beginning. I know technology improvements are required in my world. I've got to partner, GE, CV Pacific. They're two of my big partners that I'm getting together with to start to bring them into my world some. Thank you.